36. Please continue, in that I'm appearing confused, maybe due to a certain double entendre that I'm picking up in your words. Darkmoor found the dialectic a dichotomy, splitting off in ABCs, a being seen of indivisible invisibility from any inward information of it. The double entendre pointed out the deceit of a being seen now out in ABCs in any word information of it. Yet, without now knowing out of it in word, there is no information of it. The dialectic set up a debate between awareness of a why appearing, a gazing it, or now asking of it why, a knowing out of it as in word thoughts of appearing of it. It, a being seen as though now out in a cunning craft of a word ship, within Kaz microwave black around indivisible body, echoing any hearing a language now in the dialectic debate, canceling itself out of any information of it, revealing a being still in the first place, indivisible invisibility. Invisibility before falling as leap into understanding any inward spelling of ABCs, informing it out invisibility a while. Before thinking in words of a being seen appearing of it out as a mirror function echoing sound waves out in her eyes as Ivre body. A being Y-I, a wave ray as appearing, a gazing it out in word, a being seen still in the first place. Now that I am finding myself listening, hearing it in her eyes, a wave ray black around body echoing information of it. Literally, y'all in word ABC's information of a being seen in a while. Moore could only observe this crazy flow of energy, information in words, as though vomiting up or down a glut of a being seen gushing out inward information. A calm eyeing from above as well as below. He felt it all a black around him now, a knowing out of it without realizing why, except as a being seen in her eyes as a present presence. She smiled back from across the table. Moore blinked with imagining her leaping into his mind, as shrieking Kali Ma, the hairs raising on the back of his neck, forewarned of danger. Still, he felt a great kindness in her eyes of a being indivisible invisibility. She gave a slight nod before continuing speaking the cryptic dialectic debate thesis, antithesis, synthesis of a Y-I merely appearing, a gazing it or now as existing, appearing of it information a while. Then a disappearing black around, complete darkness now with intent to turn as to know a being a gain, a begaining of it. As microwaving a black around, a radiation out in her eyes, ion Ivre body now, as curving, turning y'all, asking of it why, knowing out of it any, or Ivre body is causally, y'all, by mere function of mind or why memory reflecting in word, any appearing of it out as existing, by denial of a being completely in the first place complete. Complete. A completion completely complete. CCC in denial now as though a knowing out of it projecting incompletion. A being, a black, a lack as a being completely complete still in the first place. now as though projecting out of it a being lacking of it, instilling intent of anybody to be of it a gain, a begaining of it. Thus a why being complete in the first place, appearing and gazing it out now, a black around, knowing out of it with intent of intentionally disregarding a being complete in the first place. The supernatural, supersonic, silent buzz of the dialectic seemed to settle down. His stomach no longer lifting into his throat, Moore felt a deep relaxation coming over him. Complete encirclement, darkness of a being now to be perceived as black. Asking of it why a desire of evil, of any or everybody as though lacking of it, necessitates ignoring a being full up, complete in the first place. Sounds like a recipe for disaster. A disaster we all in turn bring upon ourselves by our own ignoring of it. In a flash of insight, Moore found a certain calm, no longer ignoring himself out of ABCs, of a being seen still in the first place. Projecting it, ignoring it is a positive projection of negating it. Positive negativity in any mirror mind or why memory wave function of a being anybody as out in word thoughts of it projects indivisible consciousness, a black around, no knowing out of it any denial of it. A denial while DNA in a being that still singularity of a why I now out in her eyes of everybody is in one, in toward a twisting into a black around echo of it. Anybody, a pairing of it in a supernatural mirage of any inward mirrored informing appearance of it, merely appearing, gazing it out in her eyes as thought waves. Supernatural electromagnetic sound pulses, as zany thoughts of it informing appearance of anybody, anything, anywhere. She paused with a quizzical look in her eye. Moore, somewhat familiar to all things Egyptian, recognized Thoth as god of art, of a being seen literally, as knowledge, science, and writing. He also had been initiated by a shaman into the native way of perceiving all creation as body of the great grandfather, mother, creator of any information. Thoughts of it as a being now as thoughts of it. A God to say, a God to be literally anybody, any information in name alone. The supernatural wave ray eye of thoughts of the world. The Pyramus eye vision now having him in sight. Swallowing him whole, offered further of it as X per eye in seeing it through an eye of anybody, asking of it why. A why eye appearing, a gazing it out now as cosmic memory, in ABCs of a being seen out of it in word. That experience, piquing his interest some years before, led to more study of the history of it. It as thoughts of it. Now a knowing out of it supernaturally as thoughts. Some thought America's USA a reborn Egyptian civilization. For him, Darkmoor, the whole universe. He knew the entire polytheism of Egyptian gods rested on our eye of a being seen freestanding in a word freedom, appearing it, gazing it from above as below, still one silent singing, singular indivisible principle of a being seen still in the first place. Ariatin. He knew about it. Something told him now with Christina he would become it, a being seen from a singular point of view. Thoth? You said thoth. Thoughts of a goddess say to be now of letters. Thus any inward being, a being of a duplicity inward information of ABCs, literally appearing of it. A being now a mind mirrored supernatural duplicate in word of a being seen as thoughts of it by the grace of a goddess. To be literally, phonographically appearing of it, merely appearing, a gazing it out of ABCs. A goddess. To be art of a being literally, appearing of it in words out in her eyes as leaping a wave ray as information. Christina had now touched on the supernatural. He, touched by her eyes, leaped into the macrocosm of cosmic overmind. A great mind he knew intimately, as a being of it, saved by it at 2 years young. Only as one to appear, appearing later, learning ABCs as inward thoughts of a between. A between, twin now out of it, as otherwise than it. Now finding himself touched of a black around echo by her, as Mother Nature touched him in sun, rain, and wind out there where a god lost his shoes. Now he found himself within her eyes as leaping superimposed as thoughts of a being seen directly across the table. Praise the gods and pass the whiskey, he mused, and by now he could use a drink. Page 38. In that we all appear of it, as though turning in words into any mere appearance or effect of it. As in word thoughts echoing out in her eyes, a black around, are radiating in the or why of mind or why complete loops of electromagnetic darkness, perceived now to be our king, as king of it, wise, any knowing out of it. Now that of a black around absorbed a being seen of him in that split second just prior to his sudden inward awakening, saving his life as now as a 2-year-old, knowing of a truck running over him. Him as cognition, now a knowing in recognition. A recognition, our I cognition, now of a being still in the first place, mirrored out in word as thoughts of any meager, thin king of anybody appearing of it out in name alone. All that flashed in his mind or memory, turning in a word freedom, appearing, gazing it back to black. A blackness of a being seen prior to his first inward memory, awakening a split-second space in time, now, under that delivery truck. The sheer miracle of it now came to mind. How was it possible to move blindly to that perilous place to begin with, he wondered. Why the setup? Why necessitating a supernatural, supersonic inward awareness superimposing itself instantaneously? Saving his but life before now any knowing out of it. Yet there it was, and now still is complete. a recognizing of it now, of him in ABCs as a being seen there, personically. Supersonically came as answer. Suastika, ak, it is well. Wheel is it, ak, him a turning out in her eyes, Zion of it. Indivisible invisibility, supersonic cause, blackness of that of a being seen as zany, scant, thin king of it, why, in a Eve ray body. Now he remembered. In that same way, we all in turn remember a deep as leap unto unwinding a unconsciousness. As only on awakening is a recall of a being seen that way possible. I of I as leaping out or a black into the wave ABCs of a being seen indivisible. Our I called now out of that a while. A black body by a being seen out in words of anybody as knowing any appearing of it from a merely mirrored appearing a gazing it out. Or a eyes appearing it out in toward a twisting into now mirrored, then echoing that black around sound waves of a supernatural voice within anybody. In our eye, calling that first memory, he found himself an indivisible black mirror sea as biofields, any wave function now turning out of it a knowing denial in word, informing any chintzy thin king of it supernaturally, superficially, y'all, right before his eyes. Now, still knowing it out in word, he found himself alternating in a word freedom there as awareness of it, indivisible invisibility of any individual. Christina gave him beseeching eyes as though she hesitated to continue. He recognized that swinging far out on the limb with a veritable stranger. Moore gestured with a nod and a flick of fingers for her to continue. At the same time, he adjusted his position to absorb the solvent of the dialectic debate of it without losing breakfast or his mind along the waves rippling out in her eyes, zapping ting. He felt weightless. A formaz ivre body. Any potential movement impossible when a body dissolves itself black around now, any knowing of it, without word informing it. It seemed the dialectic debate stirred his awareness of a black around invisibility. She now had his attention swept away in her eyes as a voice echoing out information of a cosmic black around potential appearing supersonically as thoughts of it now. Me or you in memory merely duped by that apparent inward mirror duplicity of a being seen still in the first place, appearing, a gazing it out now, a knowing of it a while. A being seen a wily deceit of it out in her eyes, appearing, a gazing it in word. She not funny that wave of ivre body, as cosmic comic. Let objectivity of quantum science follow laws of general theory completely black around to find a being still in the first place. Indivisible invisibility in a word freedom. As zany or ivre body periodically turns black, as though our eyes are turning over that zygomatic bony horizon into the black of the head. Our eye turning again now out over that horizon in toward insight of anyone gazing it out as zany eyes. now finding himself lost in a being seen mirrored in that complete curve-eyed knowing role of indivisible a y-I potential. Any laws, y'all, melt back instantly into a being still in the first place, appearing, gazing it out in her eyes of Ivre body, irradiating our ideating information as zany potential indivisible black mirror see as seen out in her eye of Ivre body turning black into her out of a being still that complete darkness of a black around beginning any ending of it in the first place. A being seen turning black into or out, appearing of it any day, light of denial, as cosmic comic confusion. Now Darkmoor found himself out in her eyes, a black indivisible invisibility, appearing, gazing it out in her eyes, a wave appearing of it anybody in its funny action function. She not funny that way. That a wave are y'all. As leap in a black around, now turning out a knowing of it anybody, any thinking, anywhere in ABCs, of a being seen still of that singular, indivisible, subjective subject. Awareness that I am is. That Ivre body, same awareness of such that we all in turning a black around of it now, ask knowing of it still, by a yi being seen merely appearing, a gazing out of any mirrored why now you now, not appearing of it in word. You now not appearing of it in word. As swore he was able to cleave it, or define it supernaturally as any thoughts of a being out of it in the first place. Y'all as any as existing in word objectivity. In that sense, any knowing denial of the singular darkness is now as thoughts supernaturally projecting that as sex. A known as zany unknown. A dying merely supernaturally as thoughts in ABCs of a being seen now, born, a while now. Anybody now turning out of or black into one, a knowing out of it any role of a being seen as thoughts of it born. Appearing to live, merely anybody of it, a yi appearing it, a gazing it now out, mirrored supernaturally, as knowing thoughts of a God, as say to be literally ABCs, G's, us appearing of it in words, still in the first place, awareness in a word freedom, indivisible, invisibility. A being seen now superimposed out toward a twisting in twoe information by a knowing denial of its indivisible invisibility. A yi appearing, a gazing it out in word as existing appearing a while of it in name alone. Of such was the debate of the Y dialectic, tearing loose, losing him in a great overmind, more blinked, finding himself still in her eyes of evil. She now sliding her hips tight to the plastic molded chair with a hypnotic stare of entreaty. In that awareness of a being seen you all times and places, merely appearing it, a gazing it now out in words, mirroring of that infinite, in any denial, potential of the darkness. The sacred Christ, y'all. Geez, us, pressured by the gravity weight of waiting on death. Any I information, merely a while of it, now appearing in word. SKYG Kalimas of it out in her eyes of evil. Ipasai whole universal black Ivre body, covered by ignition of day. Do why now light, igniting ignorance of it, projected supersonically, supernaturally, superimposed as zany thoughts of it out in her eyes, Zion. Page 40. A crossing out, in, her eye of evil ways, out in horizon. In her eyes as waves, irradiating, Ivre eye as information in word. She not paused. Staring deep into his eyes, she seemed to swallow him whole. More could not or would not resist. Still, his survival instincts held their position. Did Corner tell you I was half Jewish and half Shiksa, as well as being a librarian-type professor? For a moment, Moore found himself stumbling into normal, or a version of it before the debate, now raging the cage in him. Now it seemed up for grabs between the darkness or a while of it out in her eyes, in her Ivre body. Completion absorbed his sense of one somehow, some way incomplete. Dumbfounded by her words, he found himself now in a word freedom awareness, completely bodiless amidst bodies. A now why invisibility, invisibility. A why I merely appearing, a gazing it, or it appearing in a word or two. As swords they seemed somehow a cutting into bits anybody, as expressed a while out of it in her evil Psi whole body, or a by of it. Pull yourself together, baby. Y'all just met. A voice addressed to a center of him broke his train of thoughts open into a being seen still at attention, now just inches above his head, just beyond the range of his inward comprehension. Corner only mentions scrolls from Holy Roller Land. I guess that's the connection, he replied, furrowing his eyebrows as he spoke. Momentarily, his attention diverted to the pink backpack slouched on the table nearby, as the blonde pulled her long hair back into a ponytail through an elastic tie. A gold stud flickered in her earlobe. Then I suppose you have to mention the Dr. D word. Sometimes, if I'm feeling contrary, I'll introduce myself as Death. That's Mr. Diaz. Hard to imagine a Jewish girl named Christina. Sounds like it came from the Shiksa half. He turned black in her eyes. It is actually Margot Christina, the pearl in black velvet. My mother, a Sephardic Jew, died when I was very young. Dad was Irish Catholic. Despite all the guilt he carried from his work decades before on the Manhattan Project, he had more guilt from not raising me in the Catholic Church. After my mother passed, he asked me to use my middle name. If I asked why, he merely looked off. So you see that I am, too, having a name for redemption, a Jewish girl in Catholic perdition. You might like to know both our names refer to a darkness. that now turning into any knowing of it a black around, macro, micro, means meaningfulness, quantum body of a unified field of of yada iota, the holy blissful darkness of the great soul, the Christ, for Christ's sake. She returned with a slight lilt of her head without a trace of irony. Think about it, Dark. We all appear turning into or out of a one unknown, indivisible, unknown experience directly and periodically as leap black into a unconsciousness. A black body con of Ivre body, experienced directly over a third of our lives. As a model, dark in the dark. The debate ignited in him awareness of a being seen appearing, gazing it in the first place now, out of a singular black eye of Ivre body, or yourself supernaturally appearing as zany thoughts of it, inward information, with a power, a Pasai whole power, Brahma Yonim, a being G's, us as a pure indivisible invisibility darkness, black body with a pressure to be a gain. Out in her eyes of evil, a will wave, wheel race, turning, churning, burning. We all, he mused, crushed in a wily, cruel, cunning craft, a sailing out over in her eyes, as zany black mirror sees anybody of a seer, anybody of a being seen appearing, a gazing it out in words, as zany information of it, as a singular mode, a mode L of one indivisible invisibility, a unconsciousness of that singular I, that I am is. A Y-I appearing, a gazing it now, a hard consciousness, awareness at attention captivated in ABCs of a being seen. A now as king of it why, any knowing out of it anybody supernaturally, as a unconscious thoughts appearing of it. A una, you now, still a being seen turning it in toward a twisting into a wise, now as existing information of a knowing out of it a being seen a unknown, still with the primary black body intention, instilled of waking up a being seen again. More's attention caught up now, a unknowing it out in her eyes, a wave ray, our ideating of a memory without inward information, a being seen still knowing out of it a blackness indivisible from any man his mind memory. And if a man without womb now, out of it raising a little hell, she added with a mock frown. The ancient wisdom keepers recognize that I of a being invisibility, in any eye, appearing and gazing it now out of it, in her eyes of Ivre body. Now that black around, asking of it why, a knowing body, of a being to perceive of it out in words, understanding the power of the why light, igniting it with a positive negation of merely appearing and gazing it now in toward a twisting into a denial of it, appearing, a pairing of it, as sex. She not left that hook out there on the table. Moore took to staring at his hands now holding the sugar shaker. It seemed the AY debate divided as sex. Y'all as sexisting, of it as zany information. A while now, a wily, twisted sisters, he mused, of a mean means, of a cobra and a vulture, as two strands of denial, he thought. Any inward body of a being seen still in the first place, now a twisting into the first, last, and only primary psi whole body. Could it now be we all still turn into or out of that, asking of it why, a knowing out of it, a suastika man as cosmic black around? In that I am saying to my students, why not? Why not are y'all eyes awareness of a being supernaturally still in a word freedom awareness in the first place? Anyone, or every one, is a knowing out of it, experienced directly, as leap black into a unconsciousness. Trust first-hand experience over a being merely mirrored as thoughts of any measly thinking of it in words in the or why. Imagine yourself still free, indivisible, invisibility, and a word freedom awareness of anybody. Awareness of a free being merely mirrored supernaturally as thoughts and ABCs of a being seen in the first place now, superimposed in words, turning out a knowing any role or role of that complete darkness body. As thoughts of it, as ka meaning black around and around, in the eternally y'all, experienced directly and periodically black as evre body, or neither black, white, or any hue of man as mind yet complete, any ever to be a gain. Supernatural, why the heck not? Moore offered, having found himself now in that state of mind. He thought, find yourself right now, indivisible, invisibility, free in a word, freedom. Page 42. In a word, freedom, any, in a why mirrored inward memory as though a why now as existing information. Pick up on ABCs in the first place now, still indivisible invisibility of any thinking of anybody is a being seen free now, free forever. Use it as a model, he told himself, of a free being. In a word, freedom to expand beyond boundaries of any mirrored mirage self-concept. Find yourself, dog. Indivisible invisibility. Now merely turning in toward a knowing out of it, that supersonic cosmic microwave black around echoing a mirror sees body mirrored into anyone seeing it appearing as though two. In this singular common experience, not a gift, a model he wondered of anybody turning out of and black around into one evre body. A model to help realize it's a being, seeing still that indivisible invisibility he wondered. An awareness of it, a zany inward formation of it as the first time now, in that first supersonic person that I am is in the first place. Merely superimposed as thoughts of a being, seen out in any why inward information of it, a being mirrored in any name. Who are we all turning black into or now out of? She asked, giving him an amused smile. Your name could just as well refer to that small daily routine death as leap black into a unconsciousness so essential to life. Any role or role of a being still ever complete the arcness, as any encirclement of a Y or U now as X, planed, flattened out, or opened up in a while, must return to a curving or finding her image complete yet closing a black around into one complete D arc. Dark? Sorry, as I am feeling of falling as leap black into you, Black Margot. Moore's heart skipped a beat with words leaving his mouth faster than they pulsed in his pea brain. Realizing a being of such singular indivisible invisibility is powerful, liberating, subjective awareness, now energy of a while ignited by ignoring it. In essence, any intent incites objective knowing. She now waved an index finger with wide eyes of a schoolgirl. Then Moore felt neck hair standing out as a denial of Kali Ma's fang. Still ABCs of a being seeing it, informing it in toward a denial. A twisting in two sisters. Wijata Nabatai. The name slid into his narrative from an ancient muse. Incites, inflames researchers researching and chasing tale of their own role, or roll eternally, y'all, as a race in that encircling complete D arc of it. Out of it, in her eye of evil, a wave will. We all wheel of everybody now turning a Y-eye toward asking of it why, a knowing out of it appearing as cosmic to Y, daylight, igniting any person appearing as a superimposed supersonic ignorance of it. It, a black mirror sees body, appearing out to Y, daylight solarization now, out in her eye of everybody knowing out of it. Pay attention, my dark artist, as any stinking thinking of it, about it as any thoughts of a projected denial of it. A purely subjective state is uncrossing that event ex hodis horizon. Our eye turning black. She now paused at black, catching his attention in that split second before its initial inward awakening beneath that panel truck backing overhead. She now turning his attention black in that sheer uncrossing of the event horizon. The event of falling as leap off a ledge of now ABCs, of a being seen now out at attention inward captivity. Moore now found himself a dopey duped in a duplicity of objectivity. We all, he thought, now a wheel, turning a black around, a Y-eye as existing out into one singular indivisible black, Pasai na saho power of being lacking subjectivity, with a G's us weight of intent of a being, a gain, awaiting death. A death perceived echoing waves, as cosmic microwaves black around, are ideating it. You may not cross the event horizon without falling into any understanding of it. It, a Y, overstanding, our eye appearing it, gazing it from above as below, of a being seen now falling as leap off that allegedly ask why now, appearing now knowing disappearing, time now appearing disappearing, as in a while a space in time, a while DNA, Still, you're a being seeing invisibility without a trace of anybody as existing out inward information. You are I appearing, gazing it now, knowing out of it, supernaturally appearing, as any thoughts of it out in word. In her eyes, Ion, horizon evil. In her eyes, a wave will of a being lack, instilling desire to be a gain. Now, then, appearing, disappearing. A being still in the first place, indivisible invisibility all along. Still merely ABCs of a being seen out in event horizon of everybody. Everybody. Now, a while, midnight to 4 a.m., our melatonin levels at their highest. As a YI consciousness reaches the long, stretched out delta length, you have a proverbial toe in the water. Then you may surf or fish that long, long wave on that cool ultraviolet edge of a being invisibility, the edge of appearing Y as X. Whoops, got a class coming up. So much for the small talk. I have seen the catalog from a series of your vision paintings. Corner showed it to me the day I went to see the painting. The sudden shift of her focus caught Moore from falling completely under her spell. The spell he recognized coming from that supernatural asking of it why as cosmic overmind. That subtle, sublime, overwhelming overstanding, any scant understanding, any thinking of it. He paying attention to it now, but often, more often than not, ignoring it in favor of all the personal crap. She now had him in a serious buzz of high Gamaguchi. Oh, baby cakes, y'all getting orgasm in the center of the brain. From that cosmic center, only inches above his head, stimulated now by her voice, he felt its synapse, its fire zapping ignition of his pea brain. She was giving him head with her mind. Supernaturally, as any thought zapping directly to the center of his head. Head to head. For a moment, he swore he smelled hair burning. I painted and Corner commissioned the hype for the catalog, he responded as though on cue, becoming aware of his fate or fortune brought him into by merely painting a dream. You must have given Corner the words. He got all his T's crossed, metaphysically speaking, she replied, stretching both hands behind her neck. He got the I's dotted too, Moore replied as he stretched his legs, trying to relax. Now, shiksa, that's like calling a fat man tiny, ain't it? Like a left-handed compliment. Like calling God as man, she replied with emphasis, letting her tongue play against bared teeth. He's not? Page 44. That is one theory, but it's probably boopkis or bullcrap. We all should realize it by now, turning periodically black around into or out her eyes as of everybody. Everything is her eyes as first for my as matter. Y'all it matters. In her eyes. A mother to nature. That I am as Eve. Ma Shina are I. Ma's eye of everybody, beaming, projecting in her eye as zany thoughts of a goddess, literally, el etare eye, a black mirror sees. Our eye flecting the inward stuff, literally, y'all, a denial while DNA twisting in toward informing the material world in form as besciencing energy out of her eyes of a psi whole black Ivre body. Y'all out in her eye of evil way of Ivre wave function of funny action of egg motion is nothing a now why thing is but inward prima materia. Geez, us as potentially ex-edding from the spacious womb of the sacred feminine. Still y'all mother de nature. Eve nare I now man with or without womb. Everybody now a man is mind or I potential now projected out around knowing thoughts of awareness of a being seen as anybody. His body, his desires, now nothing but herself. Kalima, she said, then laughed and pressed the tips of her fingers into a steeple that she laid alongside her nose, giving him what he thought as coy. You, dark man, got me started. Hearing you all this, you'd be probably thinking, maybe Ma wasn't so crazy after y'all. She gave him coy such that his heart skipped, catching him way off balance. He knew she had him in the palm of her hand, or the beaming beamming of her voice. You're welcome to any patriarchal residue I have in my bag of tricks. Just don't take my blue suede steel-toe boots. I remember getting whipped real good in a wrestling match for a championship of my weight class in high school. Didn't matter, he was 3 years older. I knew from that moment I wasn't long for that macho dick-swinging world. Coroner's world? Being a painter seemed to get me off that hook and still get me off. Metaphorically speaking, of course, he added with a grin. Coins rattled into cash register drawers as coffee grinders hacked beans. A short stack of books replaced the pink backpack. The ponytail transformed to stray black hairs, popping out of a knit cap with silver disc earrings instead of gold studs. She now right, she now left. I love your work. There's such a presence in it, a connection with those who have eyes to see. Do you know the meaning of the painting you gave to Coroner? She asked, stirring her tea. Remember, I have read the catalog. Never really tried to put it into words. That image is pure imagination. In other words, I have no idea what it means. Coroner gave it the title Adam and Eve. In those days, I lived on psychedelics that induced an overwhelming spiritual imaginary dimension. Any thought, as there in that state, is, as you say, thoughts of a goddess, to be on the edge of any potential cosmic memory. In that state, all creation is a wordless body of a goddess, taken to be described literally in a word. Yet imagination goes far beyond word. Why, a painting of it can't be defined in word. Still, it is in word that we all turn to communicate. Thus, any painting is bound to be related to in such a way. Like the man said, there are many mansions, many dimensions, many universes, many worlds in the house of us. At that time, in that intensity of painting and drugs, I appeared, gazed at some incredible rooms. Really, at some point, art seemed to be inhabiting me more than I in it. The brush held me. I tried to use drugs as a tool to focus that brush through the inner eye, to paint what was traveling through my head, me as cosmic memory purely coming from within or without, of a being still in the first place, that, now out of it information of some cosmic emotions. In between, Coroner always had the best coke. In return, I gave him the weirdness in my head, conversation with alien elders, and travel to distant civilizations of which ours is but a poor mockery. Mostly fantasy dribble, but real to me as any experience in outward 3D space-time, he offered, finishing the sentence with open hands pushing on the edge of the table. Are you familiar with Kabbalah or Tarot? She asked, fingering a length of gold neck chain that lay against her chest. I'm a former painter, present carpenter. Mysticism was an interest of mine until I found building homes more financially rewarding. Something about that level on the reality spectrum thing, he replied with a shrug, masking the inner fire, fine-tuning his attention. Spoken like a true iconoclast. You had the great fortune of being born in the West in the modern atomic computer era. Perfect setup for a rising internet iconoclast. Kabbalah is a word associated with mystical traditions, systems, and secret societies like the Freemasons. Kabbalah is, in essence, a function as cause or cause of a ba, a being lack, asking of it why I, a being, a gain. She now paused again to let the word import sink in. A gain of a black body. There again, Moore found himself, moment by momentum, alternating black invisibility with invisibility of any appearing, a gazing it now, a knowing of it out, appearing of it in word. He, a being informed now as anybody, of denial as no, knowing it out of a why I, appearing, a gazing it out in word, informing any appearing of it as cosmic mirror wave memory function. It now seemed he remembered ABC's invisibility by denying that as knowing invisibility of a being seen. Now out of it inward information. A while, till disappearing again as leap into an invisible black around of it. Darkmoor now found his way black. Home in the first place, indivisible invisibility of anybody, anything, anytime, anywhere. That awareness sent a shudder up his spine. He gripped the table to keep from passing out. Literally, y'all, in the pure sense, Kabbalah is chasing tail, she gave with a wink. Kabbalah, a funny action function of a being seen appearing, a gazing it now out, a wave of ABCs. Ask a knowing it in words, sound echoing as cosmic wave black around information of it, as comic, as cause, now a cause of it, a being now as cause of any potential cause from above as below, of a ba by a being now a black body with intent of a why I appearing, a gazing it in the first place now supernaturally out of it, as any thoughts of a being seen asking of it why, a la K and K, you of that in which it appears out in her eyes, into or out of her eyes of everybody, a gain in word, a beginning of it in word. There, everybody as individual, as selves, a way of wave function of will, a great goad, God energy, Kabbalah. A why I, the cosmic eye, be all of wax, as in her eye, way of weevil. Moore felt that wave out in her eyes, crashing his bioelectric field of view as causing a breaking up of his idols of desire.